Hello there and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time I'm completing the E Space Trilogy from Tom Baker's last season. It's Warrior's Gate. As always, I have in front of me the television companion, and with all classic series reviews, here is the synopsis from this book. The TARDIS is hijacked in the vortex by a time-sensitive Tharrell named Birok and brought to a strange white void. Birok wants to free the others of his race who are being transported in a slave ship captained by Rorvik, who is also trapped in the void. The only other thing present in the void is an ancient gateway leading to a decrepit banqueting hall. This is the domain of the Tharrells, who in a previous time were cruel masters to the human slaves, but have now repented. The humans built the Gundan robots to kill the Tharrells, and this led to the latter race's downfall. Rorvik tries to break through the gateway and thereby gain access to Ainspace by blasting it with his engines. The blast is simply reflected back, however, destroying the ship and freeing its prisoners. Romana and K9 elect to remain in E Space to help liberate the remainder of the Tharrell race, while the TARDIS, now occupied only by the Doctor and Adric, is able to return to Ainspace. So, here we are, we have the last of the E Space Trilogy, and not the best of the three. I don't understand the story some of the times. I know it's effectively they're trying to get back to Ainspace. I know it's a gateway to Ainspace, this white void, which is realised really well. I mean, the direction's not too bad in this. But trying to get back to Ainspace, trying to understand what Rorvik and his crew are trying to do, realising they're slavers, taking the Tharrells through because of their precious time-sensitive cargo. It's a interesting and confusing plot, I suppose, is the best way of putting it, and overall doesn't make much sense to me some of the time. It is Stephen Gallagher's first entry into Doctor Who as a writer. I think it's his last as well. There's a few high science concepts here. I've made comments about that in the previous two reviews for the Space Trilogy about how science comes into it quite much. You really need to have the right mind to understand this one and concentrate on it a bit more. And it does kind of muddle with you a little bit. So it's not ideal. It really isn't ideal. We'll go into the main cast. We have, of course, the Doctor, played by Tom Baker. We're seeing a lot of Tom just being Tom. You kind of realise you don't know what the hell he's trying to do when he's in the gateway the first time round. He's just exploring. He gets attacked by the Gundan robots a little bit. Tries to find out more information. He doesn't really come to his own understanding about the whole situation, about where they are and that, until episode 3, really. But I don't know what it is, but Tom seems to have realised that now the end is near. He's not been as, I don't know. It just feels like he's not bothered anymore. A little bit with some of the part he's playing. Still the Doctor. It's still enjoyable. I love the interplay that he has with Romana here. There's a little bit of interplay coming with Adric, but the whole conversation they had in the first episode of the TARDIS, where they're trying to get breakthrough of this time stream that they're stuck in, and the arguments they have between the two of them about what the best action would be is quite fun. But ultimately, the Doctor does find a way around it, but he's more of part of the. He's not really a solution here. He's just part of the circumstances of what happened, and he's carried along with it a little bit. Romana's the one that kind of makes most of the changes in this one. Mother Ward, solid as ever. And apart from her being obviously taken over as time sensitive initially when it comes to being taken by Rorvik and his crew and trying to help project what's outside, it's her story effectively with the way she's starting to realise there's a struggle there with the Tharrells. She needs to try and help them and wants to support them and get them free and free them. Really, it's Romana that takes the lead here about how to stop Rorvik from using the engines near the end. It's Romana's idea to stay with the Tharrells. it could be a bit more developed to show her exit, but there's enough there so you think that she may not be with the Doctor at the end of this episode or the end of this story, and she does. They've kind of pushed Matthew Waterhouse to the side a little bit in this one, and all the better for it. There's bits where Adric's wandering about the void tossing a coin, because there was talking about probability and the way things work with tossing a coin, and that Chinese philosophy, and I can't remember exactly what it's called now, that they talk about in the episode. And Adric using that figure of probability to go round and navigate. The idea of the whole space they're in contracting as they get smaller is interesting, and it's an interesting little thing. But I suppose if they've got a big mass like the Dark Star alloy of the ship, Rovic's ship, that would muck up the mass a little bit. So the size does make sense a little bit, but it you need to be in a state of mind to understand what on earth they're talking about, I think. But Matthew Waterhouse is okay in this. He's not grating, he's not annoying, he does enough, but he is a side character. He gets what I would class the Nissa treatment here. Gets put aside a little bit. It's the others that kind of are priority here when it comes to the characters that are playing out on this. You've then got the guest cast. You've got Rovic, played by Clifford Rose. Rovic is a nasty piece of work, basically. Clifford plays it, there's not much to go on, but Clifford plays it in the way of, I'm an opportunist, I'm in charge. He tries to sort of mock democracy about what people think and feel, but he effectively is a bully and is trying to get his own way. He's a very weak bully, but he's a bully trying to get his way. Not very much intelligent there. It's more like brute force in there. It's played quite well. Yeah, you don't like him. You basically don't like the character. You then got Packard, played by Kenneth Cope. Kenneth Cope, of course, is better known for being in Randall and Hopkirk, deceased in the 60s. He's the more likeable character. I mean, he's a second in command. He is trying to follow orders. He obviously has the same goal as Rovic with this bonus that they keep talking about. It's clear what the bonus is by the end, but they don't really make it clear exactly what the bonus is for most of the story. But they make it, obviously the Tharals are high value, so that's where the bonus comes from. They get a big bonus for the number of what the Tharals they have, because they've got quite a few. And they work through it, and he's okay. He seems to be the voice of reason to an extent, which I suppose the second in command would be the voice of reason. And all the better for it. And yeah, it's an okay role. I mean, Kenneth Cope plays it okay, but the character's not really got much to him apart from the fact he's the counterpoint to Rovic. You've then got Lane, played by David Kincaid, who is the engineer, the main engineer. Not quite a Scotty type, but he's kind of like, I'll try and fix this. It looks like it's going to be terminal. Looks like it's going to be the warp drive looks like it's going to be dead. But it's solid performance. I can't really say much more. The interesting two guest stars are Aldo, played by Freddie Earle, and Royce, played by Harry Waters. These are the members of the crew who sit about, kind of sit in the sidelines. They're trying to avoid doing all the heavy lifting and all the heavy work, even though that's supposed to be their job. It's an interesting way of putting those characters through, and yeah, overall it's an interesting dynamic there, and they're kind of like this is ridiculous sight of what they're trying to do a little bit, the slavers for Rovic's ship, and they are our audience point of view saying, what are they up to? I don't want to do that. That's a bit silly, I'm not going through there. They're used quite a bit to help with some of the bits when they're trying to revive the Tharals later on in the story, and you see them trying to, and they revive the Tharals, and all you hear is screams, and it's a good way of them having commentary on about how horrible it is to try and build it up, and it's a nice little way of getting round the limitations of the budget as such. And then of course you've got Birok, played by David Weston, who is the Tharal. Quite commanding presence. You can tell it works quite well. The whole story with him. It's quite cute the way it's done. Ultimately, the story is okay. It's an interesting concept about this gateway, about how and the story between how the Tharals were and how they've been enslaved and how they've been their own worst enemy. They were the people enslaving. Now they are the enslaved. That's an interesting little concept. Works better than the actual whole technical aspect of the gateway. I understand, obviously, it's a 0 point where you can go from one universe to the other, and obviously, ultimately, that's what the Doctor and Adric do at the end. But it's a strange one. It's a strange concept, strange story. It's okay. It's take your brain out, and you know what's coming with the rating for that. It's kind of take your brain out a little bit when it comes to some of the story. Other bits of the story you need to really understand the background of the signs to it. It's ineffectual. It's not really. No, it's not. It's okay, but it's not the greatest story. What makes this is the use of the special effects and the direction of this. Now, the direction was done by Paul Joyce. And there's a story about this, that Paul Joyce was very unique in the way he was filming. There's a lot of single camera work in the early episodes. The very first shot is going from where all the Thralls are put in that little storage area and being kept alive to a small extent, and the whole travelling of the camera all the way through the corridors up to the main command area where Rorvik's shouting orders, and you see Aldo and then you see Aldo and Royce sitting there playing cards, having a cuppa, and the whole thing up to that point where they go up to the top where you see the stuff going on with Royce and the command centre, and they're trying to get the ship working and running. That shot's quite interesting, and it's kind of helped with the music, which I'll come to in a minute. You've then got the situation with there's lots of fun in establishing shots when they're trying to take off in that sequence, which is quite interesting. There's a couple of other roaming ones. There's a point of view shot of Laszlo walking through the different corridors to reach Romana as the cliffhanger of the second episode, which is actually the most effective of the episodes that we have, of the cliffhangers we have in this one. And that's a single camera shot. But the thing with Paul Joyce is he didn't get on with most of the direction. He was too slow. He was way behind. And he effectively... It was a new way of filming, and it makes it interesting to watch in that respect because the way it's filmed. But I understand they had an argument and Paul Joyce kind of disappeared after the first filming session in the studio. It is all studio-based. It's a studio-based story. There's not really outside stuff at all. And I understand that Graham Harper effectively came in and covered most of it. He was a production assistant on the actual show. So this is really a combination of Paul Joyce's vision completed by Graham Harper in a more traditional way. And it's interesting for it. It does make it a little disjointed at times. But you know what? The use of the green screen is actually quite good in this, because the scenes where they're going through these gardens, which are black and white, but the perspective, they get the perspective shot of the Doctor walking along, and Biruk walking along, and all the stuff they do in those basically pictures of a country house that they use and how they walk about. It's used quite well. It's actually quite effective for the early 80s in regards to green screen work, and it looks like they did cover the studio with quite a lot of green screen, and they are at green screen acting quite a lot, and it was okay. It works for the story. It works well with the limited budget and resources they had, but it's not perfect. And the story itself is a little weak in parts, and it's really the direction and the visuals that improve it a little bit. To help with the visuals, you've got the music by Peter Howell. Now, this is Peter Howell's third scoring in this series. So he did The Leisure Hive, he did most of Meglos, and he's done this. This is the last one, I believe, he does of this series. And Peter Howell's very much, I mentioned this in Leisure Hive, he's more of an orchestral build-up with the atmosphere. And there's a lot of long shots and that really suits the scoring of Peter Howell's stuff. I suppose they picked the right person for that in regards to direction, because Peter Howell's very good at doing that. Paddy Kingsland's very good at the atmospheric stuff, but Peter Howell's very good at having a musical subtext down below. It's very orchestral-esque, and it's very much more like what you get in the modern series in the Murray Gold scoring and the Seiken Akinola scoring than you would get with Dudley Simpson's timpani and brass, Paddy Kingsland's the guitars and drums and cymbals, and the screeching that you get from Roger Lim in most of his stuff. It works for this. It's not my favourite scoring, but it does make the difference. And he's using the same instruments as the Leisure Hive. Some of the stuff he's using with the synthesizers and that, it's the same beats, it's the same key and same way it's been written. It's a little samey in that respect, but it doesn't really detract from it too much, and it doesn't spoil it. There's no big musical numbers like there is in the Leisure Hive. The Leisure Hive, you've got that tune that comes in when spaceships come down, that repeats itself later on when Pangol's been multiplied. You don't get any of that in Warrior's Gate. It's more atmospheric to the scenes that are happening on here, and better for it, to be fair. It is better for it. Overall, this story is not a bad story. It's not a terrible story, but it's certainly brought down a little bit by the writing in this one more than anything else. And for that, I would give this story 3 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, let's see how that matches up with the rest of the stories reviewed so far. Warrior's Gate joins 3 TARDISes out of 5 alongside the Idiot's Lantern, Battlefield and Arc of Infinity. At the bottom is still Time Lash with 2.5 TARDISes out of 5. At the top, there are still 6 with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5, the Happiness Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Case of Androzani, Tomb of the Cybermen and Dalek. That's it for now. Thanks guys for watching as always. Let me know what you'd like me to review for 2021. The link to the Patreon post is down below. Take your pick. Have a look at the instructions down there. Let me know what stories you want me to review in 2021. You still have the chance to do that. But if you like this video, don't forget to like it and share it with the hashtag teamstructor. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you know when a new video comes out. So Sunday is the last of the Who month reviews with Sylvan Nemesis. That's at 4 PM GMT, and hopefully you can join me for that. But until then, thanks guys for watching as always, and I'll see you later.